With our Tekno ET48 2.0 Truggy complete, it's time to get the chassis running with electronics. We're going for a bashing setup with this unit, so with that in mind, let's crack on. So we have our ET48 2.0 kit built with everything coming together with perfection. In the previous video we've covered a couple of upgrades, including the heavier weight fluid in each differential, the slightly stiffer springs, that must-have Tekno servo horn, and the steel spur gear. Anyways, it's now time for electronics. Considering all electronics are installed on one side of the vehicle, we'll go ahead and remove the right side guard to give us plenty of room to work and run cables. It will be reinstalled when everything is in place. With builds like this, I typically like to work from front to back, so with that said, we'll start with the steering servo. And for that, I decided to go with the Pro Modeler DS1155. With seriously impressive specs, although I'll most likely be running at 7.4 volts for this application, head across to the Pro Modeler webpage and you'll find a wealth of information when it comes to the entire range of available servos. Seriously, you'll learn a fair bit from the blog posts on the website. One blog specifically geared towards the EB48 2.0 we've built in a separate series. Anyways, this servo is crafted with precision along with seriously beefy gears, as you can see from this comparison with the Savox Monster 2290G. Pretty impressive, right? There's no messing around with these guys. If you have any questions, contact the owner and he'll give it to you straight. But at this stage, although I'm new to this range, I'm definitely looking forward to running this beast of a servo. So let's get it in place. We previously installed the servo screws into place for safekeeping, so with those now removed, we drop the servo into position, routing the cable neatly around, bearing in mind we'll need an extension cable on the end, and secure back into place with the same 4 screws. We're not going to touch anything else at this stage since we need to power up and center the servo before attaching the horn into position, so with that said, we'll continue to the ESC. And for that, I decided to stick with the trusted and proven Hobbywing XR8 Plus. Now the newer XR8 Pro was an option here, although I decided to stick with the XR8 Plus after several recommendations by the fantastic and very knowledgeable guys over on the technoforums.com. Seriously, if you're running a Tekno RC, you need to get over on the forum. Such a great and helpful community. Anyways, the Plus allows running of a wider variety of motor combinations, seems to be more reliable overall, and even though I'll be running a 4S battery pack for now, I keep the option of running a 6S pack later on if need be, something the XR8 Pro model lacks. Another reason why I chose Hobbywing is I also have the Hobbywing OTA Bluetooth programmer, which allows easy programming from any Bluetooth-enabled smartphone or tablet, making changing any settings a quick and easy process. Anyways, I've pre-tinned the posts here to make things easier later, although the ESC itself will be installed in this orientation. By doing so, not only do I keep a neat setup when attaching the motor, it allows enough cable length on the power switch to get to the other side of the chassis. And after carefully routing the cable under the drive shaft, which will need a little disassembly, we can push the button through and into position. After putting the center differential back into place, and securing its cover, it's time to secure the ESC. I tend to use this Gorilla Tape, which is not only super tacky and strong, it's thick enough to absorb some micro vibrations too. I've used this several times in the past and never had the ESC come loose at all, no need for any cable ties or anything else. It's the same with the power switch too. Now you may wish to secure the switch cables down to the chassis with some tape, although I've always left mine loose under the motor in the past without any problems. Anyway, with the ESC and power switch in position, we can move on to the motor. Sticking with the Hobbywing combination here, we have the newest Gen 3 4274 2250 kV censored motor. You don't necessarily need a censored setup in a basher, although I've grown quite fond of it having run a censored system with the EB48, so decided to stick with it in this setup too. We have a completely sealed IP5X rated unit here, ensuring there's no way any dust or debris can enter the body, particularly important for a basher or any Truggy style setup. The mechanical timing can be adjusted in both clockwise and counterclockwise directions, while operating efficiency has been improved on this G3 lineup to lower temperature buildup and maintain overall performance. Add to that intelligent internal circuitry, meaning it can easily be identified by the ESC when paired with the XR8 Plus I'll be running alongside. So it will be operating in pure censored mode at all times, providing better performance and a smoother throttle response. Getting this into position is rather simple too. We'll release the motor mount we temporarily installed into the vehicle during the build, and attach the motor directly to it using the two supplied 10mm cap head screws. Bear in mind you'll want to use thread lock here too. After which we can slide the motor mount back into the vehicle. With that done, we need to get the pinion into position. I'm using a 16-tooth Tekno pinion here, and with that out of the packaging, slide onto the motor shaft, enough so it lines up with the spur gear. Don't worry about setting mesh just yet, we want to just get the gears lined up in this step, after which we secure with the set screw, using thread lock of course, making sure it's tightened right down and fully secure. At this point we insert the two motor mount 15mm flathead screws with countersunk washers back into place, complete with thread lock again, just loosely at this point, and then set the pinion and spur gear mesh. Some like to use paper here, although I like to just feel and listen at this point to set mesh, and once set, crank down on those motor mounting screws to secure everything into position. I also like to rotate the spur gear here and check mesh at each quarter turn to ensure all is well. Okay, so that's the steering servo, ESC and motor now in place. Looking good so far. Now we need to connect the ESC and motor up, as well as install battery cables and connectors, so off it is for everything to be soldered into position. And a few minutes later we're done. I'm not the best solderer in the world, but enough to get the job done. ESC cables connected to the motor in the correct orientation, including the sensor cable of course, and XT90 battery connector on the opposite side, which is my connector of choice. In fact, the battery I'm looking to use comes with bullet style connectors, and I've made up a short cable for that too. So I can leave the bullets in place and just use the XT90 connectors instead, which makes everything easier with less risk of getting bullets in the battery the wrong way round. Finally, I've also replaced the side guard removed earlier, which neatly tucks away cables leading back to the receiver box. Talking of the receiver, I'm using the Sanwa MTS transmitter here, which I've used with the EB48 2, and it's a great all-round mid-level transmitter, comfortable to grip and operate with some customizability thrown in too, and a nice screen above for feedback and other data. This comes complete with an RX482 receiver, which has a built-in antenna, making things even easier and even neater. Anyway, with ESC and servo cables connected, we can seat the receiver into the receiver box. I like to use a little bit of that double-sided tape to keep it in place here, after which we can seal the receiver box back up. And we're ready to power everything up now, and go through your initial setup depending upon your chosen ESC, setting neutral, full throttle and full reverse positions. And more importantly, it powers up the servo and centers its position too, meaning we can now power back down, and as we have the servo in its centered position, ensure your steering linkage is as parallel to the bell crank as possible, securing with a single screw complete with thread lock, and then tighten the servo clamp to double lock everything into position. And we're pretty much done. All that's left now is to set steering endpoints, and that depends upon your chosen setup. So I'll attach my choice of wheels and tyres. I'm going with the backflip LPs for now. And then I can set steering endpoints using my transmitter, after which I attach my Hobbywing OTA programmer to the ESC, and go through all the available settings, getting a higher voltage to the servo, setting reverse, as well as fine-tuning the behaviour of the ESC as and how you like. And finally we're complete. ET48 2.0 built and electronics installed. There'll most likely be some more fine-tuning to do, easy with that OTA programmer, but for now we need to head out and see how this performs. So join me in the next video where we'll give this vehicle its very first run.